Let's see. Today is April 20th of 2021. I had lab work done. Wrong arm. That's the arm. Yesterday, I got the lab results um posted today. I'm going to show them to you, just educational purposes, maybe. If if you're not signed up and using one of these sites, I thought that this chart system maybe was used just by um, the health chain, Texas Health Board or whatever. I thought that this was uh, designed specifically for them. But apparently, because I saw on YouTube a couple other uh, times this chart system popping up, being people showing it. So I guess it's a nationwide software company that's designed or using this charting system, which is good because if I change doctors or move to a new location or something, I think all this data would be readily available and just, uh, I could log in and have all my data, which is great. Back in the late 1990s, I was working for a hospital. I was doing security work. I worked hospital security about 30 years at numerous different hospitals. I don't know, six, seven, or something like that. But the one that at that time that I was working for, I worked for them, uh, I think 18 years. I think that's it. Can't remember now. Oh no, memory going. Uh, they they ended up. I worked for that hospital, and then they built a hospital, a smaller one, in the town that I lived in. So that was great. I worked at the main hospital 5 years, and then went to the new hospital when they built that, and I worked out there 9 years. And well, I won't give you my, then I went back to the main hospital. I don't, I'm giving it to you, so okay. But when I was working for them, they were making announcements, or telling the employees that well, one thing they took over, I don't know, in the Kansas City area, must be 10 or 15 hospitals that they took over. So when I started working for them, they had one hospital. Then they built one of their own, and then they uh, started taking over other hospitals. But when I was working for them, they indicated that they were building software. I mean, well, they weren't, but they were had a company that they were building software for hospital data that could be used between hospitals and all. They didn't say. I'm not sure they did say all, but that all hospitals could use it and things would be standardized. And at the main hospital, they had a room or office set up with manuals and a whole bunch of information. And then even the little hospital, for some, I think maybe they needed some place to put it. There was a small room out there, and it had these manuals in there. A lot of it sort of software type, type. I looked at it a little bit since I was interested in computers and what have you. I wonder if maybe that hospital, research medical center, well, one thing, they sold out years later just to that hospital chain. I forget what they're called. The one that the federal government found them guilty of multiple crimes for doing illegal things, and the one, they were fined major bucks. I ended up working for a hospital in Florida that was part of that chain. I was in charge of the contract security there, but I had to go through the orientation that all employees, even though I was not an employee of the hospital, I had to go through that. And one entire day was mandated. The federal government had mandated that all new employees have to go through this day of instruction. And the day of instruction was basically, okay, we're required by federal law because we were found guilty. Of course, they didn't, they put it differently, we were found guilty of crimes or whatever. We have to, this entire day has to be spent on this, subject, how you can report us, how you can collect a percentage of how much we've stolen from people that you will actually be given, and not just because you work there, but anybody who could turn in that hospital or other hospitals can, collect a lot of money because you get a percentage of what they've, stolen. Anyway, I had to sit through that. But I wonder if this hospital that I worked at, Research Medical, how their thing worked out. Maybe they sold it, maybe they sold it to some other company that developed it or whatever. But it's really neat. I'm going to show it, a little bit of this. Maybe I'll be showing you the wrong information or, stuff but so let's do that. Well, I think I messed up. Did it do this everywhere? Yeah, it did. Okay, this software has pain in the butt. I went and got all the pages, and marked them as a tab. Each page being a different page that I was going to show you. And I picked the ones that I thought would be, and because then I was logged out of, or well, it was still there, but, and once it popped up, and said, and I clicked no, stay. But then that must have been on a tab page that the next time it must have popped up. I wasn't on that page wasn't showing. Okay, well, let's do this, I guess. So, I'm not even sure I want to do this now. Okay, let's do it. So, no, I'm not gonna, to hell with this. I'll do this some other time. I've done it in the past, but I wanted to show you the new lab results and whatever. Computer, I love computers. I think a lot of us do, and the World Wide Web and internet and all that type of stuff. But sometimes, oh, it's so aggravating. I don't know if you can hear that or not. I think that's what today is today. Or is that an aircraft? I can't tell whether it's maintenance people around here. They have a big cart when they go pick up the trash. They pick up trash Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You know, well, trash goes in the trash bin, but Monday, Wednesday, and Friday you can put it out by the curb and they come along and pick it up. It sounded like their thing that they push. Anyway, I had the lab work done. My when I was in the hospital with the leg infection for 6 days, the lab work that came back, I know it went up to 3, and it's supposed to be below 1. I think it's supposed to be, I think the high is supposed to be 1.2. If it's above that, that is an indication of kidney problems. So I was in there, and mine, I know it was 3.0, and it may have been 4.0. That would be really high. 3.0, because I know, because they told me it looks like you have kidney disease and whatever. And then, of course, this has been over a year ago, and I think maybe a couple years, or maybe a year and a half or 2, or something like that. It has been coming down steadily, and it's still high, but it's not anywhere near, it's just a little bit above, I don't know, let me say 1.3 is where it's that high, you know, if it's between something and 1.3, or maybe it's 1.2. If I could remember, I'd pull it up now. Is that BUN, B-U-N? Is that I can't remember. Anyway, it has come down significantly. That's what we've been watching. My A1C, the diabetes thing, is, of course I am diabetic, type 2, but it's a little bit higher than what it was, and I've been doing pretty well with controlling it. The last time I had lab work, this time it's a little bit higher, and there's something else that is above what it should be. When I was in the hospital for that leg infection, that was bad. That was terrible. Because they catheterized me a couple times. I ended up leaving AMA against medical advice. That was not a good time. And I like my doctors, and I like the cardiologist group that I have, and but I was not happy that 6 days that I was in there for that thing, and I signed out AMA, and if it hadn't been for my daughter that lives here in Fort Worth with us, I don't think I'd be here now. I mean, I think I'd be, you know, either down there or maybe up there. Yeah, I don't believe in it up there, but if I wouldn't have made it, because I left AMA, and they didn't dismissed me. They didn't put me in a wheelchair and wheel me down to the lobby or anything like that. My daughter had to take me. They refused because I left against medical advice. And by the way, I worked hospital security for 30 years, and I was called, I don't know how many times, to patients' rooms and things where it was a different, scenario. It would be I'd be called up. Well, I'd be called to the emergency room, and somebody would be refusing to sign the AMA form. And I remember one was and that hospital I worked at was like the main hospital. And the nurses in the emergency room there, I mean, most of them were pretty arrogant. I mean, I'm talking about towards security. And there was this one nurse who was ER nurse, and she was very pregnant. And this guy had been brought in by ambulance and with the police because he fought the police. And he insisted he was going to leave, and the nurse was telling him, well, you shouldn't leave and all that kind of stuff. And then she was, oh, you have to sign AMA. And she kept pushing a sharp, pen in his hand for him to sign the form, and he's saying he's not going to sign. And I'm concerned that he's going to stab her in the stomach with it, and he didn't, but and then I was called like at one hospital, a different hospital, Trinity Lutheran Hospital. They had a psych unit that had an open door policy. I mean, patients could leave. There might occasionally be a patient who was there by a court order, but that was rare. But anyway, I got called one time to go to the psych unit, and I went there. And the patient had already, a young female, an adult, but a young female, had actually left the hospital and was out on the sidewalk, off of the hospital property, on the sidewalk. And the nurse, and she was a nice nurse, psych nurse, but she said, oh, this patient left, and you've got to bring her back in. Well, the other security, I always had, updated the other person what was always going on, no matter what it was. Keep everybody informed so everybody knows what's going on. So he was heading down the sidewalk. He made contact with out on the street, and this nurse is telling me, you've got to bring her back in here. She's not allowed to leave. And then I'm like, why can't she leave? Well, the doctor doesn't want her to leave. Well, I said, is she here by court order? No. I said, is she on some type of medication where she might step in front of a bus or something? Does she, is she? No, nothing like that. And then I asked a few more questions. And then I said, she can leave. I said, does she have any property here and everything? Well, yeah, she's got her stuff and everything. So I called the other officer, and I told him, he said, well, I've got her. And I said, well, the hospital cannot hold her here, so she's going to be able to go. And they said she has some, property here. She can come and get her property, and we will make sure that she, can leave if she wants to leave. And so, anyway, the nurse had gone back in, and the nurse comes back out, and I'm waiting in the lobby there outside the psych unit. And the nurse comes out and says, Dr. So-and-so, the psych doctor, I don't think she said psych, whatever, does not want her to go, and she can't leave. And I said, well, tell Dr. So-and-so she can leave, and I'm here to make sure that if she wants to leave, that she can leave. And I said, now, if there's a court order, then she has to stay. And so the nurse goes back inside, and then the nurse comes back out and says, Dr. So-and-so has the court order. And I knew that was bullshit. I knew he was lying. And but I would have made the same. I said, well, you tell Dr. So-and-so that if he has the court order, it's worthless. That has to be here. Can't be in his office or his pocket. It has to be here on her chart. And so she goes back inside, and then she comes back out again, and she says, well, uh, the doctor says, he's someplace, he's at his office or home or who knows where. He says, well, she's on a medication that, and I said, I asked you, that was the first question I asked you, if she was on any kind of a medication that might make it dangerous for her, if she might walk in front of a bus or something like that, and you said, no, she wasn't. And I said, now what I want you to do is call the director, or the, whatever we call it, that, the nurse. This was a weekend or nights, I forget which. It was daylight, so it was a weekend probably. And I said, I need to talk to the, director of, it wouldn't be the director of nursing, but the RN who was in charge of the hospital when administration wasn't there or whatever. And as I'm saying that, she comes out from the psych unit, and she says, Jim, she can go. That patient can leave. There is no court order, and she's not on it, So, how did I get on that? Oh, yeah, my dealings with. Well, anyway, of all those years, and I had all kinds of situations where. Now, there was one thing I heard nurses repeatedly say, and I didn't correct the nurses, because that was. I mean, there was plenty of times I told somebody no, and I told the nurses, this patient can go. But quite a few times the nurse would say to the patient, well, if you leave AMA, your insurance company will not pay for the expenses, for your medical bill. I knew that was a lie, but I never said the nurse's lie, it was like, now I never had if the patient had said to me, I'd have probably said, no, that's not correct. Or maybe I would have said, tried to, I don't think that's correct. And of course it's not correct. But in all those years, and we're talking all those years of working hospital security, and a lot of people, left, and I convinced a few people to stay, not by, I go up, you really should stay, the nurse, they're concerned about whatever, and some of them stayed. But of course this time, when I was in the hospital, I was the patient. And I knew too that, they wanted me to sign AMA, and well, you have to sign it. I knew I didn't have to sign AMA, but I wasn't going to argue with it. The nurse is in charge of that. Well, actually, the nurse in charge of that unit tried to get me, to sign, and I was like, well. And then she went and she talked on the phone to the charge nurse for the entire hospital at night, and she came back and said, the charge nurse really wants you to sign. And I said, well, I know you're concerned about it and whatever. I'll sign the form. I'll sign the AMA form. And so she was happy about that, but she still tried to get me. She actually called. Remember, I was in Fort Worth. She actually called my emergency contact, my daughter in Washington, D.C., and got her on the phone. And then my daughter, well, Dad, maybe you should stay, But, so anyway, I signed AMA, and then I said, and I'd been there 6 days, and everything was really wrong with the thing. I won't go into all those details. Well, I'll mention one just to give you an example. Every time before lunch, I'm a type 2 diabetic, and my doctor's very happy with my numbers. I'm diabetic, but the numbers are, with the medication that I'm taking. no problems. But there I was in the hospital, and by the way, for 6 days, they always want to know what you ate. I didn't eat anything in 6 days. I could not eat. Uh, and they put a catheter in me, and they hit the prostate instead of the going through to the bladder and whatever. So I bled for like 24 hours. But I didn't want the catheter taken out and put in again, which I knew they'd have to do. So the nurse who put the catheter in was like, I think, it was filling with blood, but I think I see some, urine going. I said, yeah, I think you're right. I didn't want it to come out. I didn't want it to go. I knew it'd have to go back in. 24 hours later, the one who had put it in said, well, got to take it out and put another one in. If you've not had, well, in my 30 years of hospital security, one of the regular calls we got was to restrain a male while a catheter was going to be put in him. And there was numerous like ER patients that were drug overdoses, or one guy claimed he had fallen off a building. He didn't fall off a building. The paramedics, when they pulled up, they saw him inching around like it, so he could get on the ground, so he could be, make it look like he'd fallen off the roof. If he was laying where he was laying before, he couldn't have said, well, I dropped from the sky, But like this one patient, I never saw this before in all those years. The guy was like, that was the one, yeah, that fell off the roof. Not responding, and the doctor did the sternal rub with the thing, and he didn't respond. And then the doctor, he was kind of a strange doctor, and the nurses hadn't seen anything like this before, hadn't seen it, and I hadn't seen it. He took care of the guys, he took hold of the guy's testicles and squeezed them, and he did not, the guy didn't respond. And so the doctor told the nurse, put a catheter in him, catheterize him. And I started to leave, and the nurse said, no, Jim, you'll need to, and I said, he's not going to see the reason for being, having to have security there, because I said, I don't think you, but I stayed, of course, She put the catheter in him, and he came off the bed, and I had to, well, he didn't come off the bed, but hold him down while she put the catheter in him. It hurts. My ex-wife has a whole bunch of medical, she's confined to a wheelchair and stuff like that. She has and I'll tell her something, and maybe even explain something to her, and then it's like she doesn't hear me, or like she comes up with the same thing, and she'll, well, I've been catheterized before. It doesn't hurt that, it doesn't hurt that much. And I said, it goes in, through the penis, and it goes in like 6 inches or so. And men are different than, women, and she just doesn't. But understand that and other things. But I sort of feel like she doesn't actually listen, Not going to listen to him. She's going to wait for her time to tell her story, or whatever it is, But so I signed out AMA for him, make the nurses happy, and then I said, okay, this. Of course, I was taking an IV, but this medicine that I'm taking, what's the name of that? And I said, can you write it down for me? And She says, no, when you leave AMA, we don't give you anything. I said, what? And I said, because, and then a urologist had just come, had come through to see, well, one the other day had, I was there for 6 days, one came through and he just walked by my bed. I guess he gets paid for, And then the other one came and actually, was just getting ready to leave be dismissed the next morning. And I was going to leave AMA. But I wasn't going to leave AMA at that time, but this doctor came through, the urologist, and he talked to me for a little bit. And I said, Doctor, where's your office located? And it was located out in this area of Fort Worth where I live. And I said, okay, doctor, will you be my doctor for this urology? And he says, yeah, sure. Just call, make it. I didn't get his card or anything. But anyway, so I asked the nurse, I said, so, what's the name of the doc? We don't give you any information at all. And they didn't give me any information. I left with, my daughter came up, put me in a wheelchair, and I left with nothing. But I was able to go, when I got home, get online and see everything. So if you have the opportunity to, I'm going to pull this chart thing up. Okay, it's here. And nope, this needs to go over here. I need to go to medical, go here. Okay. Go to test results. Okay, I don't even know. Let's see. Why did I come over here? Well, I wanted to show you charts. Okay, I don't know what this is. What you can do, by the way, if you can just copy this, paste it into Google and do a search and find out. Well, I guess it says about this test. Let's see if that. Oh, okay. So there's the information too. This is okay. First time I've noticed this. So you can look this kind of information up there. Now, can I go back to? It looked like it's taken me completely out of. Okay, I'm not doing very well. I think I need a different browser, maybe. Let's try it. No, okay. That was on top of the other one. Okay. So, I can go, let's see. Okay, now that. Okay. Test results, okay. I don't do this very often, so. Okay, here's the A1C. This is the diabetic information, and it tells you here 5.7 to 6.4 increased risk for diabetes. Now, for years, my number was way up, was under 6.4, and a doctor in Miami said, you are going to be, or you're like pre-diabetes now, he'd say, or they use it, the other doctor used it, didn't say pre, he said something else, but it just meant you were very close. And by the way, that they were telling me that the lab work for years. So I could have maybe made sure that I did not become type 2 diabetic if I had just worked a little bit. But that number just stayed, right. Oh no, the range is 4.0 to 5.6. So, I'd been, well, you get what I mean. So, by the way, these things, they'll show you like the range of whatever the number is. So for this A1C, which is for diabetes. Uh, oh, that's the thing too at the hospital. That I uh, when I went in the hospital with a leg infection, they drew blood, well, a whole bunch of times. They drew in the ER. They drew blood to do the thing, and the nurse and I don't blame that. Things do happen. Yeah, she drew my blood, then threw it in the bin where they put things that have been used that are to be disposed of in the disposable way. She threw it in the thing, so she had to stick me again. She couldn't get the blood this time. Stuck me again. Couldn't get the blood this time. She asked a guy. He came over, and he stuck me 3 times trying to get the IV, and he couldn't. And she came back in. She apologized, said we got to get this blood, and then she got it on the first try. And I said, "Do you want me to hold that blood while you, get rid of the syringe?" Jokingly, But I mean, things like that happen. But this, I believe, is okay. They're going to tell me. Let me see if I can do the click here. Open in a new tab. The TSH is okay. That's not the T. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, that's for thyroid. My thyroid number has been up. It's up a little bit all the time. That's a thyroid thing. I'm not too worried about it. My doctor right now is not worried about it that much. Test results. Oh, the diabetic thing. So I'm in the hospital for and they do blood work, all that kind of stuff. So then before a meal, and I wasn't eating any, I couldn't eat. And I didn't eat for 6 days. Even the little things of Jello, I would take half a spoonful of the Jello, put it in my mouth. It would kind of melt, but I couldn't, sort of melted, so I really couldn't. I just put the Jello down. I couldn't even eat the Jello. My daughter and my son came a couple times with, McDonald's or something like that. I couldn't even, I couldn't eat it. So anyway, there's every time before a meal, lab came and said, okay, we have to do lab work. So they were doing lab work, at least 3 times a day. And then they said, okay, well, we have to give you insulin. And I said, I don't take insulin. And, well, hospital didn't say rule, the hospital policy or whatever, if your blood sugar is up or whatever, that's why we do, that we're testing you each time before you eat. And if it's up, then we have to give you an insulin shot. And I said, no, I'm not taking insulin shot. Well, and I said, no, I'm refusing. I'm not only refusing, you can take my lab work once a day or whatever you need to do for that, but you're not taking my blood just so you can decide whether you're going to give me an insulin, what am I, and that's that. So that was, and it was stuff like that. Uh, Also, I have, let's see, which one is it? Let's see if it's this. Oh, okay, now here's my glucose, 121, and standard is 70 to 99. Uh, I think the bun is, no, because that's in the normal, or that's in the normal range. There's one for kidneys, and when in fact, I just told you about that a while ago. I can't remember what that one is, but it was at least 3.0 or something. So much so that they said, we're going to have to, we're going to have to call in a, whatever they call a kidney doctor, or you're going to have to see a kidney doctor when you get out because this is, and my daughter actually went home, after, bringing me a quarter pounder or something like that, actually went home and was actually crying, came here to tell my ex-wife and my son here what was going on with me. And she was crying, that I have, kidney disease. So that number has steadily been coming down. And it's almost, of course, it's almost down to the top number. So, and I do have, I have an enlarged prostate. I also have gallstones, which are not a problem. My ex-wife just had her, let's see, gallstones taken. Did they take out the, I don't even, I just said she doesn't listen to me. I don't listen to her sometimes. But they don't cause me a problem. But ever since I left that hospital, AMA, my doctor has been, whenever I have blood work done, looking to see if that number does come down. But I've got, anyway, it's almost down to in the normal range. At the top of the normal range, but the normal range. Anyway, I'm going to stop this now. Oh, but anyway, if you're not signed up for this, for a medical, where you can log in from home, this information is really, it's really, and you can do a search, it looks like they have a thing here I really didn't pay any attention to before. What I would have done then, and maybe you still want to do and get better, is if you don't know, copy it, go to Google's, enter it, and then there'll be a whole list of places where you can go, and it'll be like people have asked questions, and then there'll be the answers. My such and such is this normal? What is the normal, whatever, so you can find out information about that and put that together. Of course, your doctor will tell you too if you ask, and maybe even if you don't ask, the doctor will explain some of that stuff to you. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'm 80 years old, and I missed a lot of opportunities to, take care of, eat properly, exercise, do all those things that, and by the way, I've mentioned this before. I mentioned it to my doctors, my heart doctor and my regular doctor and whatever. I went to Washington, D.C. back a few years ago. By the way, my legs are both swollen. My feet are swollen. I've mentioned this before. You're not going to see my legs or feet. I don't want you to see them and spoil your breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And I'm sure you've seen people that have diabetes or some other problem, COPD or whatever, where I've seen, I worked in Miami at a mall security for a while. There was a guy, he was from Pakistan, and he pulled up his pants leg and showed me his leg. They were black, and I doubt he's still alive now, because mine are, my legs and my feet are not good, but his, I don't see how he, So, believe me, especially if you're a young person, if you're anybody, but especially if you're a young person, don't be an idiot like I was. Take care of yourself. Try to eat the right foods. Try to do, the right thing. It's so much better, and you're going to live longer, and you're going to have I'm 80 years old. I think sort of actually I'm a heart doctor. I don't want to say I love my heart doctor. I have somebody leave feedback, oh, you're gay, No, I got a great heart doctor, and it belongs to a cardiac unit, a group, and they're all great. Everybody, secretaries, everybody, But I think he sort of got the idea like, well, you're old, because I've been complaining for several years about, I'm so weak, I can't do anything. Walking to the mailbox, our apartment mailbox, I'm lucky to make it back. And I've had a bunch of you, and I appreciate the comments, like, well, get out and walk around. Walk around, I can hardly stand. Just to go to the other room or whatever, I sometimes have to hold on to the wall, or I'll go down. And I in the beginning, it was like I was telling my doctors, hey, I think, I was okay, and then I started taking the medicine, start taking medicine, and I think one of these medicines or two are causing the kind of problems that I'm having. And it's like, no, you need to. And then I said, well, if I get my, blood pressure under control, and really it is under control, now, or it was really basic, They keep changing the thing, recently, a few years ago, they were like, what was the thing? If you're old and your blood pressure is normal, well, they wouldn't say normal, but if your blood pressure is such and such, you should be taking blood pressure, was it blood pressure? You should be taking blood pressure medicine. Everybody who, I was like, no, don't take, well, do what your doctor says. Ask your doctor and do it. Come on, don't be stupid, The doctor knows more than you do. And if you have a doctor who doesn't know more than you do on medical subjects or whatever, better get a different doctor. Anyway, take the advice of an old man, an 80-year-old man, and I've seen it all too. I've seen patients who have emphysema and COPD and everything, and they come into the emergency room. I would be there, and they would have to put them on a ventilator so they could breathe, and they'd go to the intensive care unit. And then after a few days, the nurse would call Jim, for security. Jim, could you do us a favor? there's this patient who's insisting that he wants to smoke in the intensive care unit, and we've told him that he can't smoke, and of course he'd be on oxygen too, you know. I've seen that happen, you know. One hospital I worked at, they had a separate building that was like breathing or cardiac or something, where they check in, have a test done or something. And a guy drives himself, and he goes in, and they they test him and check him and everything. Goes out to his car, and sitting in the car, he lights up his cigarette. Boom, you know. That was the area I was supposed to be patrolling, but they had me at that time going and picking up somebody who was in a wheelchair and taking them to the emergency room or something. So we had plenty of security. Another security officer had to respond to the fire. But I got sidetracked again. Anyway, take care of yourself, and figure out, if you don't know how, somebody can talk you through, I'm sure, and it's not difficult. But in fact, in the beginning when they started this, in fact, because I went to multiple doctors, I'd go and, okay, they give the instructions, okay, now, we have this, and I said, yes, I know, I'm signed up, I'm signed up. But then every time I would go, like I'd go to the heart doctor, and I go once a year, actually, unless I have, I had a pacemaker put in. But normally, I've got a thing over here that's on all the time, and is transmitting data, but it transmits if it's, I don't know how it works, it transmits if there's a problem, it's going to transmit it right away. Otherwise, 3 times a year or 4 times a year, it transmits. But if something comes up, it transmits. But where before I had to use that thing to dial in over the cell phone, and then now it just sits there on a different thing, sits there on close to my bed, and so, but take care of yourself and figure out how to get this thing. Because this helps. Like, I don't know what I would have done when I left AMA and they wouldn't tell me anything, that is ridiculous. And I worked hospital security for 30 years, and I dealt, you would not believe how many times, with the subject of people leaving AMA. And there was times nurses said, this person is not leaving, this person is not leaving. And then, of course, I had to assess what the situation, if the person was, a mental patient or somebody who was going to try, I had to, whatever the situation was, I had to analyze it and make a decision. But I did not know that, and that should not be allowed. I'm surprised that the Joint Commission, hospitals are reviewed by what's called the Joint Commission, and it's, I don't know, 3 to 5 people. I think it's every 2 years. But if a hospital fails, then you get, if they approve you, if they don't approve you, this Joint Commission that's set up, and when they review you, there'll be a doctor coming. They'll all come at the same time, and there'll be somebody, and then they'll probably throw in somebody, like, depending, maybe there'll be somebody that'll become a doctor, will be coming, and a nurse will be coming, of course, and maybe somebody, they'll be doing something, they zero in on something. So they'll be doing, let's say, medical records. They're always checking records and doctors charting and stuff like that. But sometimes they'll do something they're going to, the Joint Commission is going to throw in something new, say dietary, and so they'll know. And that's sort of a problem because when they set this thing up, and once they start, the hospital that when they get inspected, that hospital is going to spread the word. You know, the American Hospital Association or whatever, I'm sure gets in there. What are they doing this year? And so they'll say, you know, if it's, oh, well, okay, it's, they're looking at charting. So in all the other hospitals that are going to be, you know, that are going to be checked are informed, and they'll be like, okay, they're, you know, they're doing dietary, so make sure the spouts are where the, you know, the soda comes out, or make sure that your food is, you know, it's stuff they should be doing anyway. But the hospitals know ahead of time, and they know when, they know too, the hospitals know when they're, what the date is, and security can be like reporting for a year or two. You can be reporting things that you report, like torn carpeting somebody might trip over, or the standpipes that the fire department hooks up to or whatever, the cover on the thing is broken, or no matter the things that we reported daily, maybe nothing would happen. I mean, if it was a, you know, something dangerous or something, well, those things are dangerous, but nothing would happen. But before Joint Commission, everything got fixed. Everything you could get, you know, you could get fixed. But the Joint Commission comes in and checks hospitals. And if you're not approved, now if you were really not approved, now that would be a major thing. If the hospital were not approved, that would be the end of the hospital. So not very many hospitals, or not very many, the Department of Health, and not you know, they want to make sure that, and the hospitals know that too, but they would, you know, if you weren't approved, then they would, maybe they might come back, even depending on what it was. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe they would come back and very, you know, maybe we'll be back in a month. If these things are not taken care of, that's it. You're not going to get you know, insurance companies are not going to pay, you know, for what you bill for. Eventually, I mean, you could be shut down, or can you imagine a major hospital? Boom, you know, shut down, and it could happen. But all you need to do is have that fear of it, and the hospitals will do whatever's necessary, which is good. You know, they do a Joint Commission check, and they're going through the hospital, and they come upon a security officer, or a nurse, or a person who works in housekeeping or food service or whatever. I've seen them do this, you know, walk up to an employee. Where is the nearest fire alarm pull box? Where is the nearest fire extinguisher? This is an ABC fire extinguisher. This is a, you know, Holazon or whatever, you know. And so you want to be a good time to be take vacation days or whatever. I never, you know, at one hospital I was like the fire marshal. I conducted the fire drills, and we tested the fire alarm system every week. It wasn't a fire drill. What it was is I would, at the same time, at the same day, and the same, you know, let's say Tuesday, and let's say Tuesday at 10 a.m., I would decide where I was going to conduct the test, and I would go, okay, to, let's say it's a nursing unit. I'd go to 3 West. Now I'd do a different one each time, and I'd go to 3 West. and then I would call the operator and say, I'm going to conduct, the whatever we called it, I can't remember. And then the switchboard operator would make sure that the fire department was notified not to respond, or maybe I can't remember now. Maybe they had a switch that they could. No, that would be dangerous, because then if they flipped the switch off, and it wouldn't go, But anyway, I'd contact the switchboard, and then she would announce, your attention, please. We're conducting the weekly test of the fire alarm system. If you do not hear the fire alarm in your area of the hospital, please call the operator and let us know. So then, of course, at that time, then I would say I was at the nursing station, and there would be a fire. A lot of times they didn't even know it was there. There'd be the fire alarm pull thing or whatever. And I would say to a doctor, if he was there, or a nurse or whoever, I'd say, have you ever pulled the fire alarm system? No, I didn't even, I didn't know one was there, whatever. And I said, okay, in just a minute, I'm going to have you pull it, okay. And then I'd say, okay, now, and they pull it, and the fire alarm, would go off, sound all through the hospital. And other people before me, when they had done the test, what they would do is open up the fire alarm thing, raise it up, and then there was the button there or whatever, and they'd have them push the button. I did it with pristine the way it would be, and the nurse would say, oh, that was easier than break the glass thing. That was easier, or somebody would say, oh, that was harder than I thought, or whatever. Anyway, at some point, the director of security said, Jim, these glass they're just regular glass, but of course, you know how people charge for, this is costing too much money. From now on, just unlock the thing. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I want them to, and he said, oh, okay, so I can, But anyway, too much information. Thank you for watching.